take this moment to share some thoughts that I have about compassion. And I was reflecting on compassion before a retreat, and was reminded of some teachings on compassion that I remember when I first heard them, I found really hard to accept. That compassion is not necessarily the first thing that we feel when we see pain and suffering. As I just mentioned, sometimes we turn away. Sometimes the impulse is to turn away. We want to avoid that pain of being present with the pain and suffering of another, or to our own pain and suffering. Sometimes we rush in to try to fix things, or without really tuning in to what is actually happening. So, a response to suffering of, wanting to alleviate it is very positive, but sometimes we just rush in and want to make it stop. And that can often be more for our own comfort than actually to do something skillful to help. Sometimes when we see suffering, we can feel anger. We can feel like blame, like we want to blame. We want to, kind of turn against something, like what caused this? Who caused this? We want to point the finger at the causes of suffering. We may feel sad. We may feel helpless. And sometimes with certain kinds of suffering, there can even be this schadenfreude, this kind of appreciating or taking some pleasure, some kind of perverse pleasure at somebody's suffering. So, but one of the things that really I found hard to understand or accept when I first started, kind of taking in the Dharma teaching around suffering and compassionate response, is that that sadness is not really part of that. Sadness is considered to be a near enemy, or another teacher I taught with used the word a near imposter, which I like better than near enemy. Like, we have enough enemies, but a near imposter can, it disguises itself. It, like, we think, oh, this sadness, that's compassion. And one of the in the early Buddhist teachings, the Buddha, compassion and other qualities of the heart, usually the Buddha would, in order to talk about what it is, he would describe it with a story or a simile, rather than a definition. So definitions were something that, kind of came at a later time. But the Buddha liked to illustrate things with stories. And there's this this story that the Buddha told about to illustrate what compassion is, about a person who was traveling from one village to another village very far away. and they were walking, and they had walked quite far, so they were far away from where they started, but they were nowhere near the destination. So they were really kind of in the middle of nowhere, very a very isolated place. And this person began to feel very ill, and lay down by the side of the road, and was exhausted and in pain, and weak, and suffering very badly, very terribly, and they were unable to go any further. And they lay there by the side of the road. And then another person came along and thought to himself, this person is sick. They need to be given nourishing food. They need to be given a place to rest. They need to be cared for and given medicine. And then this person's suffering would surely subside. So in seeing the suffering of the person, the thought arose in the second person who came upon them, what they needed and how their suffering could be alleviated. And the Buddha said that this thought of, of wishing that the person's suffering would be alleviated was compassionate, sympathetic, and kind. So, and I was reminded in reading this story about the story of the Good Samaritan. Some of you might be familiar with it, although the Bible is not so well known these days as it was a generation ago. But so many people passed by in a similar situation, passed by a person lying by the side of the road who had actually been attacked by bandits and robbed and was injured. And it was, and in the story in the Gospels, the point was that somebody from a tribe who was, in a kind of an acrimonious relationship with the Hebrew people came and helped. That this compassion overrode the tribal conflict and enmity. So that was that story came to mind, and so what the Buddha was pointing to in this story is this arising in the mind. May this person be well. May this affliction be relieved. And then in a later version of the story, in the discourses, in the Chinese version, the person does actually engage in activities to help the person get to a place where they can be cared for. So it is natural to arrive for that, when we allow the heart to be touched by suffering, to ask, how can I help? What can I do? And I think that, that can often, when circumstances are so enormous, when the conditions that are giving rise to the pain and suffering of people and other non-human beings and the earth herself are so big and systemic and ingrained, it can be it can lead to a sense of helplessness and disconnect. And Joanna Macy talks about that a lot in her teachings on uh, an ecodharmic response to the suffering of the earth and the devastation of the environmental devastation of the earth. So, but this, I think that what I'm understanding more deeply and practicing more deeply is that there is a way in which, when we keep the vision of may these beings be free from suffering, and how can I help? And avoid the pitfall of feeling overwhelmed, of feeling helpless, of feeling anger, frustration, all of these things that we can get pulled into. And they may come from a heart that cares. And they're not a wise response. They're not a response that continues to nourish the energy and the life to keep engaging. Compassion, the compassion is one of the Brahma Viharas, the boundless states of heart, mind, that the Buddha taught about, and compassion is one of four. The others are metta, which is goodwill or kindness or friendship, loving friendship. Compassion is the second, karuna. The third is appreciative or resonant joy. So taking joy in the happiness and well-being of others, just as the heart may quiver and tremble seeing the pain of others, the heart can expand and rejoice in the joy and well-being of others. And so that's mudita. And then upekkha is equanimity, the heart that understands that all conditions arise from infinite causes and conditions that are beyond our comprehension. So that equanimity gives us the capacity to say, this is how things are right now. I can respond, and it's not in my power to change everything. So compassion needs to be balanced with all of these, and especially, I think, equanimity. Equanimity gives us the capacity to take the big view. Like, I think of this equanimity as kind of zooming out and seeing the bigger and bigger and bigger picture until we're zooming way out and looking from one of these like Hubble telescope and seeing all of the cosmos and recognizing that it's all connected. And so we have some capacity to offer goodness into the flow of life, and we don't have the capacity to change everything and to alleviate the suffering in the way that we might wish. Um, so sometimes, there are different ways of cultivating compassion, and one of the ways is just bringing compassion to our hearts, experiencing that quality of heart, and just allowing that to be present within us, and allowing it to radiate outwards into the world boundlessly. Not that we can control how far our compassion will extend to beyond the horizon, but just a sense of not limiting it, not placing boundaries on it. That's how I understand a boundless compassion. And another way of cultivating compassion, as we encounter pain and suffering, whether it's within our own hearts, within our own beings, and within the world, is to just sometimes make a simple statement which can evoke the heart to open. And some statements, the traditional one is, may your pain and affliction soon be relieved. May you be free of suffering. And you can say that, may my pain and affliction be relieved. May I be free of suffering. And saying that with a kind and caring heart, a kind and caring intention, can bring friendship and compassion when the mind might be harsh and judging ourselves for suffering. Like certainly I've experienced this in myself. Like, why am I suffering? I should know better, right? Like, I've been practicing all these years. Why am I caught in this suffering? I should know better. And of course, it's a practice, and it needs to develop and deepen. And but also some non-traditional phrases which I really like are, I'm present with this pain. I care about this pain and suffering. I'm not turning away. I will not turn away. I'm listening to this pain and suffering. So for me, this attunes itself to the heart, which is in pain. Whether it's, in pain about something happening in our quote unquote own lives or outside, really compassion, when we open to compassion, and compassion helps us to open to the deep suffering that we experience, those boundaries of self and other really become more thin. They begin to dissolve. We begin to see that just as I suffer, other beings suffer. If I were ill, if my family needed to find a bed in a hospital and couldn't, I would be greatly distressed, and I feel that pain and suffering of those who are experiencing that now. Or if I were sick and couldn't get the medical attention I needed, I would, perhaps feel fear, perhaps feel alone, isolated, and so my heart can open to that, and I can really bring that intention. May this your suffering be released. Yeah, there's a comment from someone. For me, the practice has helped to witness, experience, and be with sorrow, pain, the suffering of others without immersing myself into it, without feeling compelled to fix or solve the pain and suffering, to offer love and support without becoming enmeshed. Yeah, so really very beautifully said. So just we can remind ourselves of that as we open to suffering, to pain, to affliction. That that capacity to be present with, to care about, without disconnecting, and yet at the same time, without getting pulled into the kind of the story, the words, the blaming, the anger, the hopelessness, and all of that, which we can in a way feel that's the right response. It's not helpful. It's just extending, bringing the suffering to our own being. And the Buddha said that what he's teaching is to understand suffering, and to understand the way out of suffering. So so just really finding that fine balance between turning away from, which is going into a kind of a cut-offness, a numbing the heart, and turning toward without getting pulled into the suffering, turning toward with kindness and courage and a capacity to be with. So let's move into our sitting practice, or standing or lying down practice, whatever posture is supportive to you at this moment. And as you begin, I invite you to feel the embrace of gravity, which holds the body, which supports our life, supports our body, supports the earth, supports us in so many ways. And that, just that image of support, is an image of a compassionate response. gathering attention to a sense of the whole body present, welcoming the whole body as best we can. And if there are ways in which the mind judges or disconnects from the body or does not accept the body, to bring a compassionate heart to that, to care about that, to care about the suffering that arises from that disconnect, from that judgment. Without needing to fix it, without judging. And if it feels available to you right now, bring attention to your heart center. Invite your heart to relax. Notice if the heart is tense, is closed, is tight, is hard, is armored. Invite the heart to be soft, to relax. Maybe, if it's helpful, just taking a deep breath into the heart, sighing, yawning, breathing out, releasing. And being open as we sit together in this community, this gathering, as best you can, to be open to anything the heart is holding, that the heart wishes to share, unburden itself, release. the heart wishes to speak, be received. It may not be words, it may be a feeling, it may be grief or sadness, fear. And being the kind and loving and compassionate space to receive that. And perhaps with a phrase or a word, I care about this pain. I care about this suffering. I'm here. I'm listening. I'm not turning away. If you find that in some way the body is wanting to express something, whether it's with tears or whether it's with movement or sighing, let the body express itself. Let the body express that releasing, that expressing whatever is coming up, if anything. And if the heart is calm, if the heart is open, it's not necessary to create something, to invent something or to manufacture something. Just being grateful for the openness, the presence, the calmness, the joy, the love that's there. I'd like to offer a few minutes of a guided compassion, a radiating compassion practice. Again, bringing attention to the heart center. Bringing to mind some being for whom you have a compassionate response. A person you know, a person you don't know, a non-human being. And the response arises on seeing the pain and suffering of that being, a wish that they may be free, a vision of their freedom from suffering, a caring about that suffering, a willingness to attend, to be present to the suffering, and caring that they may become free from suffering, they may be relieved. And notice that felt sense, that energetic quality of the heart, of caring for the pain and suffering of others, and envisioning their release and relief. Whether it be by their getting their needs met, physical needs, or their mental suffering somehow relieved. Not going into the specifics of what they need, but any kind of suffering can be helpful to this practice, to just turn toward it, open to it, be present with it. Of feeling the quality of compassion in the heart. Like, in some ways, like a glow, a lamp, a flame, a presence. And at some point, shifting from cultivating that quality to simply being that quality, resting in that quality of heart. Allowing it to radiate outwards to the front, to the right, to the back, to the left, above and below. Radiating throughout one's whole being and beyond. Beyond into the space that you are inhabiting, beyond the particular shelter that you're inhabiting, radiating without limit, without boundaries. To all beings, to all life. those of all races, languages, religions, ethnicities, those who are young and those who are old, those in this moment being born and those in this moment dying, those who are sick and those who are well, those who have abundant means and those who are without resources, those who are surrounded by loved ones and those who are alone. Beings of the air, of the waters, of the land, from the largest to the tiniest microscopic organism. All beings, all life, and the biosystems that support those life forms, arisen interdependently. To all Mother Earth, may suffering be alleviated. May all beings have what they need for life. And may our practice and our lives serve the happiness, well-being, and liberation of all beings.